Welcome to the Tourism Hub podcast, a podcast devoted to you and your excellence, providing inspiration and education for the entrepreneurs, experience makers, and excellence seekers of our industry to take your tourism business and career to a whole new level.
Relax.
Welcome back, and hello, Yvette Myhill. Australian Regional Tourism Sister, and thank you, and congratulations, your first Artful Chat. Now, it's wonderful to have you here. How are you finding things so far?
I love the ART conference. It's one of my favourites throughout the year. Obviously, I work for a destination network, so Destination Riverina Murray, and we have opportunities to go to a number of the different tourism conferences. And I think this one in particular is my favourite because it most closely connects with the work that we do in regional New South Wales.
And so far this morning, and you were here yesterday for agritourism. Now, such a leading mind, what have been on the 2025 program that have kind of got you taking your notepad out? That were some highlights so far.
Yeah, lots of ideas. I always write so many notes of this thing, and we always share it with all of the kind of operators and stakeholders across our region when we get back. But I think just a different conversation this year about the social impact and bringing the community along and the impact of tourism on communities as opposed to just focusing on the visitor. So I think that's been a real shift. It was coming last year, but I think this year it's really solidified that concept. And I think all of the strategy and planning work that everyone's doing to have that embedded in is a really exciting position to move forward with.
It has been a real, and I love that question that Lauren posed in the social impact session. What are we here for? Is it to deliver exceptional visitor experiences or to make a difference in building sustainable communities? It would be, my initial thing, well, it would be both, but I think until this awareness and that's been talked about, an investment in that research and that white paper that's been worked on, I know for myself over many years that's not a conversation we've been having.
No, probably not. And someone asked a really great question about whether there's kind of a toolkit available that smaller, particularly like rural and regional communities or councils could use to access those social impact measurements as well. I think that is going to be a great direction forward to be focused on, because at the moment it does feel like it's the domain of big government or like expensive consultants to be able to access that social measurement or put it into concept that's relevant to the data that you're getting that's more economically focused. So I think just a way to use some of those little benchmark data sets and those base factors to calculate out the social impact at a rural and regional level that's where the magic will happen.
Yes. Because it was those invisible benefits that we're talking about. Again, it was very thought-provoking to say, yeah, there is a lot more to discover. And through all of that lay opportunities for communities, especially in rural and regional Australia. And tell me about your neck of the woods. What have you been working on in your patch? And tell us, like, for those of you that may not be familiar with Destination Riverina, like where you are.
Yeah, so the Riverina Murray is a beautiful location, obviously biased. I'm based kind of almost in the centre of it in a little cross-border community called Barram-Kundruk, about 2,500 people collectively. And the Riverina Murray as a wider region stretches from Kosciuszko all the way to the South Australian border and then along the Victorian border. So we work really closely with 22 local governments, so it's a big footprint. We're on the road a lot. We do a lot of Ks, but really love it. I think obviously the inland waterways along the Riverina Murray is what it's primarily known for. The River Murray, Murrumbidgee, obviously all that snowy hydro system. That's all kind of the depths of our area. Are really beautiful opportunities for visitors, and then agritourism is the other really big key thing. So we have an agritourism development strategy for our region, which we are really passionate about, trying to connect agricultural opportunities that exist in the Riverina and the Murray with visitors who are coming to the region. And I think that social impact connects in with the agritourism conversation too, because a lot of the state reform work that has been done is related to trying to diversify opportunities for farmers and landowners, rural landowners. And agritourism is that diversification option is one of those diversification options. And the topic is very, I guess it's timely because there's the droughts coming, or for some reasons, some areas we're in it. And agritourism is something for farmers to consider during those drought periods where perhaps the income that they're getting from farming is not where it has been, and it just gives them some security with income. So, and that is a social impact. It keeps rural communities alive in some instances.
And that starting point to engage the agricultural farming community to see there's a great opportunity for you here. Where does one start? So someone, I mean, you were before your time in that journey. Anyone else now inspired? We had our second agri-tourism forum nationally. Thank you to Tourism Australia. For communities that are, starting to get inspired, where would they make that first step?
Yeah, I think there's still a gap between the tourism industry and the agricultural industry, and it's still not clear who, I guess, owns it. I think the farmers obviously have a very close connection with the peak bodies and within the ag industry, and they're all aware of agritourism, but that's not necessarily their area of expertise. People who work in tourism have that great knowledge of tourism, but they don't necessarily have the understanding of how farm works and how the agricultural elements, farming comes first, and how to link in visitor experiences with what's happening on the farm, the seasonality of that, biosecurity, insurances, all of those kind of mindful things. So we're in this area where it's really the farmers that are doing it, that they're the mentors, they're the places to go, they're the case studies. There is some legislative work happening in the background at a state and local level to try and make it easier for people to get into agritourism and for farmers to explore that as an option. And it's up to, I guess, the destination networks and the other RTOs around the country to make sure that that information is getting out, that anyone who's curious about that as an option has somewhere to go and somewhere where they can get the information they need. Yes.
There is a common theme that you just touched on that I'm finding. I don't have the research to support. I think just anecdotally and through observation, even just last night where we visited for the function, 6th generation, a farmer that was at the conference, 8th generation. We've been around since 80. So it's also this like being passed down, multiple generations. But I'm also finding that from the making community or producers, it's now, okay, it's my parents, and now I've gone off and done my own thing, but I've come back and I'm taking over the business. Have you found a lot of that in your community?
Yes, we have a lot of conversations about the opportunities within succession planning and agritourism, and often the idea of coming back to run the farm as it has been run for 6 generations is not necessarily as appealing to some of the younger people who have grown up on farms. So to have a different option, which means they can come back to their rural community, they can stay on farm, they can keep that legacy going, but do it in a slightly different way. So whether that is through farm stay or through education programs, through a restaurant or a farm gate on site, it gives them just a few additional things to think about. And particularly if there's multiple family members, it keeps communities in community, which is a great outcome.
Keeps communities in community. And you, speaking of going out and exploring and seeing different communities, we were just catching up earlier, and you did a big trip with your beautiful son.
I did.
And you went out into rural Queensland, up north, to visit your brother. Tell me, it's always great to step into the visitor's shoes, and you really did so, exploring many different parts of regional Australia. What was that awareness observation being, just going on an extended road trip across the country?
Yeah, it was great to do to just be in different shoes. So my son Banjo and I, he's 6, we went on a big road trip from the Victorian border all the way up to the Gulf of Queensland, and then cut across to the east coast and came down the coast and then back around. So about 10,000 Ks over 3 weeks. So we did a lot of driving, but usually I do drive a lot of driving with work, but it's a different thought process. I'm still staying in a lot of places and meeting with a lot of operators and seeing what their experience is. But to go with my 6-year-old just into businesses I'd never been into before I learned a lot, actually. The best example of what I learned was in Quilpie in Queensland, in regional Queensland. And we hadn't planned to stop there. We've been diverted. There was a road accident and we've been diverted, and we stayed in Quilpie the night. And the next morning we ducked into the visitor centre there, and they had a little kind of bucket and water sprayer for sale, and they'd set up an area just outside of town where obviously the offcuts from the opal mine had been dropped, and the kids can go out there and find opals. So they don't know that the offcuts have been dropped out there from the mine. They think they're going to an opal fossicking site. And my son that was the best thing he did on the trip. He was into fossicking for the next 3 weeks. Because he just get his little sprayer out, he's spraying rocks, he's like finding the colours, he's collecting things, and it was such a simple thing for them to have done. It directed people into the visitor centre. It was probably very low cost for them to set up because it's just a dumping spot just outside of town, but they've got parking and functionality there for visitors. But I thought that was just so well done. It was connection to place because they're an opal mining community. I really, ticked all the boxes.
And see, that's when the conversation around the value of a visitor information centre. So that's something like you didn't go on search or Google or, like you being in place and just stopping by. What a wonderful discovery and adventure for that to be. And did you find yourself pre-booking a lot of what you did before?
The accommodation we did pre-book some, just because we didn't want to get stuck in with a 6-year-old. You need some kind of certainty when you're travelling. But when we got to towns, we kind of had the mornings and afternoons between the driving time, and we explored then. So we would ask when we got there about what was to do. We'd drop into visitor centres. We still did look at like online for options, but we really chose when we got there what we would do.
Yes.
And it was good to do it that way because we weren't disappointed if something was closed or we didn't have those expectations set in advance.
Yes.
And, there was only one time when there was a power outage and we couldn't go to a bush spa or something. That was very disappointing for the 6-year-old. But otherwise, everything was available and open. And the rural hospitality was always amazing, great recommendations.
Oh, and that's funny. Like we were just speaking earlier with Dave around the importance of online reviews for a business and to be intentional in that experience design. I always find myself, and it's quite overwhelming for myself when I catch myself when I'm booking somewhere just how much of a role it plays. When you are investing in a night's sleep, you're taking a family and your kids just in that purchase decision before you book, how much of a role what others are saying and the value of that over what the business is saying about themselves. Did you find the same thing when you booked multiple places around? Yeah,
definitely. I think I certainly looked, and just the obvious Google of what's the best coffee in this town. It's important when you're driving with a 6-year-old for many hours each day. And,
you don't want to mess up that one.
So those reviews are very important. And kid-friendly places. And things like that. So, absolutely. We needed the general information about times that things were open, but we probably looked at the snapshot, the Google My Business or Google Business snapshot, though, just for opening hours and customer reviews.
It's so
really
undervalued. I always put it back on businesses radar, the Google Business profile and the review, if just to maintain and update that, because these are the moments where it matters to be discoverable, to get up there. Love it. Now, we had a really interesting work together when we were coming kind of like over that C word period, the pandemic, running a program. Victoria was shut down and lockdown. I was scheduled to come and visit Deniliquin, and, it was just, and we did some good work around digital capability, but you continue to do so much within industry training and development. Tell me about what the latest programs, which I love you've been running the program, and shout out to Tourism Sister Karen Oliver. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing around supporting for industry that you and the team do so well.
Yeah, for us, the biggest thing that we can help with, I guess, as a destination network, we don't do marketing as an RTO in New South Wales, so we're focused on the industry and capability building primarily. But we run a program that we've been running for many years now, and it's unique because we run it in collaboration with our Victorian counterparts. So it's 2 RTOs in 2 different states working together. And that's just to honour the cross-border communities and towns where the concept of the border is a very government concept for visitors and residents sometimes. But the program's called Destination Inspiration, and it all happens in region, in the businesses owned by the business owners regionally. And we run a workshop, which the inspiration component's really important there. We have really inspiring speakers from both our region and other regions that come in and talk about how they've set up their product, the challenges and opportunities they face. It's often really, really inspiring products for other business owners to see, and really inspiring journeys that they've taken. And off the back of that, we run a mentor program. So Karen Oliver, who just mentioned, is our amazing mentor who's worked with us for 4 or 5 almost years now on that program, and is very valued by all the participants. We do one-on-one mentoring with businesses in their business, and we also, each collective, every year there's a collective, I guess an alumni, I suppose, but that group, they all meet up together. They do there's a lot of online things that they do together. They maintain those relationships to this day. Doesn't matter when they've gone through the program. And the mentoring is really bespoke to them and what they need in their business at that time. And it's really focused on experience development. So if you've got a fresh idea for an existing business, or you're a brand new tourism business, it gives you, like, you can ask any question, doesn't matter how silly it is. We can connect you to the right people and just give you the guidance that you need. So it is such a well-respected program now. The participants just are so pleased with what they've been able to achieve with that support, and just accountability, I think, as well. Just like Karen, I know, sets tasks with them and says, okay, next time we check in, make sure you've done that, and just keeps you going, and know that there are other people going through it with you. And I think it's really crucial that there's a lot of great things that come from state government, and I mean, you can go online and find any resources that you need for any topic. But to have someone come to your business and say, I want to help you, this is like, let's achieve this together and let's make this successful. Make sure your price is right, that you're valuing your time, like all of those really important conversations I had. So, it's
invaluable. And a lot of, I guess, there's, when we were chatting earlier, it's such a great industry across the board that businesses, big, medium, small, micro, are supported. There's always support nearby through an RTO, RTB, LTO to be able to assist. But I've really loved enjoying the evolution of that program that has been delivered by Karen. And anything else to share that's been happening in your world, or something, what you're going to do, what will be your key action after so far? I mean, we're not even halfway there yet. We might have to have a chat at the end of it.
That's true.
But what do you think, like so far around, I guess, the social impact or the conversations that you've had so far?
Yeah, I think for us, data is really important. I know the New South Wales State Visitor Economy Strategy for 2035 has just been released. Data is a big component of that. We've been trialling some banking data, getting that out to councils over the last little while. But that for us is a really big focus. And we have been, as we said, it was banking data initially that we started exploring. But we have a lot of small LGAs that we work with. A lot of the TRA data was that, I hate seeing it, but the NP, the sample size is too small. There's no data available. So for the first time, we've been able to access some of that data and get that across to them about how many people are coming and what they're spending on, and kind of the demographics of the people visiting. And I think it probably solidified a lot of the anecdotal information we had, which was good, but it's given us a whole wealth of data that we never had before. And for us, I guess we're late to the game in even getting the economic data, but a really good time for us to now bring in the social impact data and work out where the parallels between those two data sets are, where what's happening on the ground or the impacts of visitation is showing, and how we can connect those two sets of data. So data is going to be a big focus for us, as I know many other activities.
It is. It's really, especially in the age of AI, it's all the better. Last year, the conversation was around prompt engineering. Now it's really the better the data, the better the outcome, the better the analysis and forecasting of what you can do with it when you can use these enhancements or large language model tools that can really help you decipher what the data, the story that the data is telling us. So
that's
quite an exciting time.
That's absolutely the point we're at. I think there was this kind of lull period where the AI tools weren't quite ready to deal with the volume of data that was available. But we're almost at the point where things have caught up, and I think it's very exciting.
It's exciting and useful, to accelerate us to something that will take a very long time to do, even with technology, let alone, right? It's something that, to get the right data.
And the rural conversation, I think, as well. I think there's always been capital city data. There hasn't always been data at a rural, regional level. So to bring that in to really tell the story of the value of the visitor economy to rural communities, I think is going to be really important. And that does cover the social impact within those communities, and that links then down to all sorts of things like the renewable energy projects and the impact of those.
Right,
and the water
the ripple effect that will come. Absolutely.
It's the whole, it just opens a world.
And then suddenly the connections to everything that we're talking about. I mean, we live and breathe the visitor experience, but in the grand scheme of things, particularly around regenerative tourism or regenerative living, right? It's regenerative living and changing behaviours. I think it's fascinating, and that's what keeps us coming back. And never a dull moment. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Despy,
for joining me. This is excellent, and thank you for everybody that's joined us live and watching the replay or listening to us on the Tourism Hub podcast. Appreciate you, Yvette. Keep doing great things in your backyard, and there's more to come. Not even halfway.
That's right.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Relax.